Whether we talk about it, joke about it, or completely ignore that it exists, peeing while performing certain exercises is a thing. And contrary to belief, it doesn't just happen to postpartum women or to pregnant women. It happens to a huge variety of people, from high-level athletes, teenagers, menopausal people, and post-surgery. It can happen when we sneeze, cough, lift something heavy, or perform a high-impact move. So what is incontinence? It is basically at its truest form when we leak urine performing anything I just said there. So a sneeze, a cough, an impact move, or simply we just cannot hold it in for long periods of time. But how do we help? We talk about it. We help take the shame away from such a natural body function. It happens to me, it happens to, like I said, so many different people, but yet that stigma and shame is still attached. And that's because we don't talk about it. We need to talk about it and take the joking away from it, because pelvic floor health is an extremely complex issue, and it will affect not only your confidence, but the quality of life for a very long period of time. And guess what? You can help fix it. You don't just have to suffer in silence and go, oh well, I had a baby, that's just what happens. Yeah, it happens. And just because it happens a lot does not mean it is normal. And it is something that can be helped. So how do we do that? We talk, take the shame away, get people to ask for help. And two, we can help troubleshoot by sharing knowledge. And that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to share some tips that I have for troubleshooting the symptoms of incontinence when performing a move like a jump rope. And the reason I'm bringing in the jump rope is because CrossFit is getting so popular these days. The CrossFit Open is on, and there's lots of people performing double unders. And guess what? You don't have to have had a baby in order to be leaking performing a double under. I think they said something like 80% of CrossFitters suffer this while performing impact moves during a workout. So, like I said, the jump rope is a really good entry point for helping to retrain the pelvic floor to be a dynamic, functioning system prepared for the impact that comes from impact moves, whether it's a box jump, a burpee, a jump rope, or starting to lift really heavy weights. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few troubleshooting tips that I would do with my own clients and what I'm doing myself, because I am on this journey too after having CODA. So I have found that my tolerance levels are at a certain point. So I'm able to do certain things like jumping and running and plyometrics, and I don't have any symptoms. However, when I started to introduce jump rope and double under specifically in, that's when I had a huge issue with leaking. So I had to take a lot of steps backwards to try and troubleshoot what was happening and why that was happening. So the first tip I'll give you is that pelvic floor is extremely complex, as I said, and it's not always that it's a weak pelvic floor that's causing the issue. A lot of the time it's actually a super tight, tense pelvic floor, which is what I know my issue is. And it's an issue for a lot of people who train a lot or are quite high level athletes. And that's because we are walking around in a really tense state all the time. Whether we're lifting super heavy and we're bracing, we're used to being bearing down and being tense. However, here's a really good example. If we walk around doing bicep curls all day, and then suddenly we go and ask our bicep, which is extremely tired now, to go and perform a task where we load it with a weight and perform a curl, more than likely you're going to fail on those curls because you're just worn out from all day being super tense doing curls. Well, the pelvic floor is a muscle, and the same thing will happen. So if we're walking around in an extremely tight, tense state all the time, not only from training, but also from years of sucking it in, sucking our tummy in all the time, then
we go and ask it to do a really hard task by adding in a high impact move, and suddenly it fails because it's exhausted. So how can we help to relax the pelvic floor when we're performing high impact moves? Breath. Breath work is the key to this. It is the key to all healing when it comes to not only postpartum symptoms, but from a lot of injuries too. And it's something that I really focus on with my clients. But just for the sake of the jump rope and high impact moves, the exhale is how we learn to relax the body. All right. So like I said, we're in this tense state. What I want you to do is completely relax when you're doing your impact move and practice how you exhale. So we're just going to do a couple of jumps without a jump rope, all right? And we're just going to practice the exhale as we land, okay? So they can be short and as often as you like. You do not have to do an exhale with every rotation like you think. I want you to exhale as often as you need and more frequently than you think you should while performing a jump rope, okay? So, the other thing that we want to do is let it all hang out, let it go, in the words of Elsa, but it's something that is particularly prevalent with women because we have stuffed our stomachs in for such a long period of time that we don't know how to not be in this steady state. So if you are self-conscious while doing it, what I would suggest is looking at a wall and letting it just hang out, okay? So like I said, let it all hang out. Okay, so this leads me on to the tenseness again. So, like I said, holding on super tight can also go for how we impact the floor on a landing. So again, we still haven't even touched the jump rope yet. I want us to practice landing for a jump rope, okay? Because we are responsible for how we impact that pelvic floor, and we want to give it as much help as we can to help it to respond to the impact. So you should be as quiet as possible when you land, and we're also going to land on the balls of our feet, not flat on the ground. Okay, so I don't want to hear it. You should not be able to hear that smacking sound while you're performing a box jump or a jump rope. Okay, so think like a cat. How does a cat land? Okay, that's my second tip. So we've got exhales and we've got tension, where we're holding tension and impacting the floor when we land on the move. The third tip I'm going to give you is alignment. It is super important for helping the pelvic floor again to prepare and give it the best help that it can to respond to an impact move. So this again is for people who are suffering incontinence, not the mass population. Okay, so we do change things up a little bit because guess what, there's no rules. So with your alignment, what actually happens a lot when people are doing double unders or jump rope in general is they tend to start to look up. And when you look up, automatically you change your posture. So your ribs start to flare, the pelvic floor is being pushed out forward, and you start to squeeze your bum. Okay, so instead of looking up, I want you to look forward. So I'm going to grab a jump rope. And I'm going to demonstrate the difference, what happens when I look up to when I look down. Okay, so I'm looking straight. Body's nice and relaxed. Okay, now look what happens when I look up. I can already feel the difference. So you can start to squeeze your glutes so much more. So watch your bum when you go from looking forward to looking ahead. The second tip for alignment is to shift that body weight forward, okay? So you might want to do a couple of rotations and then realign. So we want your boobs over the balls of your feet. So boobs over balls. It's funny, but it works, okay? So boobs over balls. That work will mean we give the pelvic floor better positioning when it lands. I also want to practice this when we jump. Land in that position, don't land up straight. Okay, and again, let's try this with a jump rope. Like I said, practice a few and then go into your thing for it. Okay, so now we have exhale. Where do we hold tension? Rechanging the alignment, looking straight, don't look up, tilt the pelvis forward. The next tip I'm going to give you is patience is a virtue. And by that I mean building up your tolerance and respecting your body and meeting your body where it's at. You will always be able to achieve your goals if you start where you're supposed to and build up to your goals, okay? So what I mean by that is, okay, you're faced with a workout or a WOD that has 50 double unders in it. Instead of going and be like, right, I can do 20 double unders before I start to pee, why don't you stop at the 20 and figure out why it's happening after 20? And I'll go into that in a second. So this is what I mean by patience. Break it down. Okay, I pee after 20, so why don't I break it down into 4 sets of 5 reps? Reset, rethink about what you're doing. Where am I holding? Where is my core? Where is my alignment? And how is my breath work going? So 5, 5, 5, 5. And you know what, after 20, I'm okay doing it this way, and then you can continue on to the 50. So you can either manipulate the volume that way, or scale it back completely and bring in the singles, like I said. So do your singles, troubleshoot your singles until you're at a point where you're not suffering from symptoms, and then you can start bringing back in the doubles or the double unders. Like I said, troubleshoot where you are, meet your body where it's at, and learn to be patient, because ignoring it and being like, oh, I'll just wear black pants because I want to do this workout with the rest of the people, it's going to affect you for a very long time, and it's going to affect the quality of your life as you go forward. So learn to be patient, break it down, manipulate volume, and the way to troubleshoot that is to video like I have here. So start taking recordings of yourself, whether it's at home if you're self-conscious, do it at home or somewhere that you feel safe, and start to video and see and start being your own coach. Start getting to know your body on a really intimate level, and you'll start to see patterns of, okay, do you know what? I can see, and like that's the beauty of these videos. You can slow it down and you can see, okay, after 5 reps, my bum, I'm starting to clench my bum. Or I can see as it starts to get into higher reps and volume, I'm getting tired, and the tiredness is causing me to start to look up. I forgot to breathe, my ribs are coming out, and all these different things are starting to happen. So they are my tips for you. Take your time, be patient, exhale often and short breaths. You don't have to go with the rotation. Tension, where am I holding the tension? Let it go. Am I squeezing my bum? And how loud are you pounding the ground? Or are you keeping it nice and soft? Your alignment, am I looking forward? Slightly tilt that hip back on all impact moves. Give your pelvic floor the help it needs. And then my biggest tip of all to leave you with is go and see a pelvic floor specialist, a therapist. Cannot recommend it enough. Because like I said, every pelvic floor is different, and you might think you have a weak one because that's what society kind of associates with postpartum or leaking is, oh, you must have a weak pelvic floor. Actually, the opposite might be true, and you might actually have a very strong or very tight pelvic floor. And a pelvic therapist will be able to do those proper assessments on you. And knowledge is power, and once you have that knowledge, then you're going to be able to troubleshoot so much better. So any questions as well, always come and talk to me. Always feel free to DM me. I will always talk quite openly and honest about it. We're all on the same journey, and let's break the taboo that we all pee. It's a natural thing, and thanks for